Okay, we're going to talk about sync on the Analogue Solutions Nyborg 12 because there's a fair amount of synchronization opportunities going on here. As you know, sync is what happens when one oscillator's wave shape is forced to reset itself every time the other oscillator's wave shape resets itself. So basically you slave one oscillator to the other oscillator. Doesn't make a tremendous amount of difference unless there is a frequency difference between the two, because obviously the waves are going to be of different frequencies and then forced to restart at a frequency that is not their own. So let's hear this thing. If we go to 2 to 1, that means that oscillator 2's frequency enslaves oscillator 1's frequency, and changes in oscillator 1 result in changes in the frequency of oscillator 1 result in the sync effect. So here we go. We'll turn the modulation to something. It's EG1. So if we turn off VCO1, we just get good old-fashioned VCO2. But if we turn on VCO1, VCO1's waveform is forced to reset every time that VCO2's does. Right now I'm using the EG1 to control the pitch of oscillator 1, and by changing the pitch, it causes the unique sync effect that we so desire. Okay, so that's us using EG1 to control the frequency of oscillator 1 during the sync effect. We'll switch it to external, and we still have the sample and hold input with slew. So let's hear how that sounds. It's an interesting sound that you don't necessarily associate with sync because we're so used to hearing swells of frequency, but any change of the frequency will initiate the effect. Just adds a sort of nice movement to the sound. And of course we can use LFO, which is currently set to sample and hold. And changing the speed of the LFO is going to... So yeah, I'm just playing with the amount of modulation affecting the pitch of oscillator 1, which is causing the sync effect to make effective sounds. Okay, let's see what else we got. Oh, well, let's hear what VCO2 does. Okay, so this is VCO2. This is VCO1's waveform being forced to reset every time VCO2's waveform resets, and a modulation of oscillator 1's frequency based on the audio range frequency of VCO2. Let's see what this does. Okay, that's interesting. So what happens when we change the frequency of VCO2? So let's do something like this. weird sounds going on in there. Anyway, so enough of that shameful fun. You can also cause VCO2 to generate some interesting sync effects. Now, another option we have is switching it so that it's actually VCO2 that is on the other side of things. So let's just listen to VCO2. Let's just listen to VCO1. So VCO1's doing his thing. And VCO2 is the one. And this is fun because the wide and free setting allows you to just sweep through the whole thing. But of course, we can also use frequency modulation to generate an effect. Now this time, we have EG2 controlling the effect. In that way, you can have envelope 2 controlling the sync effect and envelope 1 controlling, for example, a filter envelope. So you get these sounds, which are not so vintage, actually much more modern, but really thick and deep and cool. So that's why you have the option to choose which oscillator is syncing to which oscillator, because each oscillator has different functionality that can be applied to the sound. And it allows you to use certain functionality for other purposes, like in this case, using envelope 2 to control the sync and envelope 1 to control the filter cutoff. So these are some of the things that Analogue Solutions often does in its designs, allowing you to have different outcomes that you might desire with the simplicity of layout. Can't get enough of that sound. It's really cool. But we could also use the external sound here. The external modulation, that is the sample and hold with slow. LFO. And now VCO1. So if we alter the pitch of VCO1, because we've got stuff modulating stuff that's modulating stuff, you're going to get some weirdness. So yes, this is not just your plain normal sort of LFO. Now in this instance, instead of oscillator 1 forcing oscillator 2 to align to its frequency, the LFO is causing oscillator 2 to align to its frequency. What happens then? Let's turn modulation off. let's see what happens then. So yeah, it's a different effect that's causing a different sort of wave reset. It's not the traditional sync sound, but it is a sound that causes certain outcomes in the timbre. Seems like the square has the greatest effect. It's weird because of the variation in waveform. It's almost like a weird sample and hold thing. What does sample and hold sound like? Okay, so you can see that what's happening is not happening at the frequency of sample and hold, and I'm going to assume because the sample and hold is causing a different outcome based on the variation of the waveform itself. And, you know, obviously when you're using the LFO as the source of the sync, then you have one oscillator that's not affected by the sync, which is also interesting.